come. Today is Sunday, March 26, 2023. This is Flashpoint. Hello and welcome to Flashpoint. I'm Mara McDonald in for Devin this week. After pushing out on social media he expected to be indicted this past week, so far nothing out of the Manhattan DA on former President Donald Trump, although all seem to be bracing for charges. If it comes to pass, what does it mean for the political math here in Michigan? Closer to home, gun bills continue to roll through both chambers in Lansing. And while final language is still in the works, newly elected Michigan GOP Chair Christina Caramo stands by comments linking these bills to the Holocaust. After months of nothing but bad news coming out of Wayne County's juvenile detention facility, it's now to the point the executive says it's an emergency. So now what? And all eyes on Detroit City Council this coming week as the Ilitch's Olympia development comes looking for $800 million in tax subsidies for District Detroit. But there's something new in the mix this time around which might just sway some votes. A lot to digest this morning. So let's get started on Flashpoint. Let's dig into everything with this distinguished roundtable. Detroit Today host on WDET, Stephen Henderson, political strategist from Densar Consulting, Dennis Darnoy. Nancy Kaffer is the editorial page editor with the Detroit Free Press, and Nolan Finley is the editorial page editor at the Detroit News. Hi, squad. How's everybody doing this morning? Good. Let's begin with the two things that are heading into this coming week. And the number one thing that seems to be sucking all the oxygen out of absolutely everything is the potential of a Trump indictment. So, poll of the table, who thinks that the former president is going to be indicted by the Manhattan DA?
Oh, I expect he will. I don't know that you take this exercise this far and don't deliver what folks expect you to deliver. He's been under a lot of pressure for several years now, or for a couple of years now. He had two of his deputies resign because he didn't indict. I don't think he can tease this and not deliver it.
Okay. I think the bigger concern for Trump, though, is the indictment I expect to see later from the DA in Georgia. The interference that he engaged in the election there, I think it's a much stronger case, number one. And I think they're actually pretty close to indicting him there as well. But don't stop there. I mean, this is somebody who faces a lot of legal peril in a number of different jurisdictions, both local and some federal, I think. I don't think this is a story that's going anywhere anytime soon.
So who at this table, Dennis, Nancy, believes that this is either a boon for the former president or it's an absolute disaster for him?
I do not see this as a political liability. I mean, Stephen used the phrase legal challenges, but I mean, this is something that I think that he will be able to actually ride to success. He has right now a lot of the establishment Republicans actually having to come out and support him. He has his presumably number one challenger in Ron DeSantis having to come out and say positive things about him. It's rallied his base. I do believe the case in Georgia is the most troubling one, but certainly he's going to not really face too many political problems from this.
Is he the nominee, Nancy?
You know, I think there's a lot of questions out there, and anyone who's pretending to know how this is going to work with the nomination is really whistling in the dark. You know, something's changed in the electorate since 2016. Trump-endorsed candidates did not fare well. We had some here in Michigan. They lost by historically bad margins. You know, he's lost some kind of magic there. Can he get it back? Will this get it back for him? Will this continue to drive moderates and independents further away? It really seems like a coin toss.
Do you think this does anything to help the Michigan GOP, which by any measure is floundering here right now after losing the whole shooting match this last go-round?
There is no Michigan GOP. I mean, I don't say that facetiously.
Well, there is.
That's the reality. There is no recognizable organizations. They don't have a staff, don't have an office, don't have a chairman who has any sort of influence over the party or any attachment to the donors. You couldn't help this party no matter what you did. It doesn't, as I said, it doesn't exist. Does it get Trump the nomination? You look at his poll numbers the past week. They went way up against Ron DeSantis. Does it get him elected? Absolutely not. And I think that's sort of the objective here, to keep him, popular with Republicans, get him on the ballot so, Joe Biden doesn't have to defend his record in 2024.
I will tell you that I speak to a lot of Republicans. I've covered politics in this state for a very long time, including when I started in Lansing. And I don't know any old school GOP types who are excited at the idea of a Donald Trump nominee.
Of course not.
No, I mean, we've seen the results over the past 3 cycles. They speak for themselves. Nancy is completely correct that his endorsement did nothing throughout this past cycle. So,
except he got his people on the ballot.
Correct.
And then they got defeated.
Sure.
Which,
but the interesting thing is he couldn't get his endorsed nominee through the Michigan GOP convention for chairman. I mean, so I do think that he still has his sway, but as Nolan said, and I completely agree, there is no Michigan GOP. They have slid down into irrelevancy. There will be other groups that will come out and back Republican-based candidates, but the party in and of itself, as a organization, is bankrupt.
So we'll talk about the Michigan GOP and some comments that were made this past week, but I'd like to switch to one other thing that we have coming up this week, which is a potential vote at the Detroit City Council of tax subsidies, substantial tax subsidies for the Ilitch Olympia development, as well as Stephen Ross. The editorial in the Detroit Free Press was a barn burner on this topic. So here's the question. Is there just fatigue with this entire idea of paying this stuff out? Can we expect this council to go along with this, or does the magic of having Stephen Ross attached to this do anything?
Everyone I spoke to about this said Stephen Ross is involved. This is like the big guarantee that things are going to happen. I mean, that's great, as long as the next news cycle's headline isn't Stephen Ross backs away from project. But, we have this system. I think there is a fatigue about abatements. We've seen them promised. We haven't seen them come through. But the reality is the Ilitches own this property. They have demonstrated that they will sit on property for decades. In 2014, when Chris Ilitch acknowledged that they had purchased property in the Arena District footprint and had sat on it for 14 years until the time was right to construct this arena, if they don't develop these sites, no one is going to do it. They can't be forced to relinquish them. They own them. In that framework of, is development better than no development? Yeah, I think it's better for these sites to be improved, and the challenge is, we have a community benefits agreement that's asking them to make specific promises and commitments. It's a pretty substantial community benefits agreement. It's going to be on the mayor and the city council to hold them accountable to doing what they said they were going to do, because again, doing this work has to be done by the Ilitches. They own the land. And it's better than not having it.
And Mary Sheffield added, I think, a real sweetener to the city's side of the deal this week when she said, look, let's put a 2% surcharge on all of the tickets that get sold in the Arena District. If you go to any other city in this country, there are entertainment taxes, there are ticket taxes that help fund city government and helps ease the pain of some of the abatements that are given to the owners for building these arenas. We lost all that when the Ilitches moved away from Joe Louis. It makes total sense. When you have 4 professional teams playing in downtown Detroit and the city gains absolutely no revenue from that activity, that's a big change that I think can lead to a bigger conversation about how else can these things be helping city government do better by the people who live here.
Can you understand, though, how especially people who go to these city council meetings are disgusted by what they see as a bunch of overpromises and non-delivers that happens here?
Absolutely. No, that's where that community benefits agreement comes in. Yeah, it's frustrating. I hear from longtime Detroiters who feel that the city and the state repeatedly roll out the red carpet to bring in visitors from the suburbs while neglecting people who have spent their lives and their resources here for decades, generations. I'm not from here. I can't claim to know what that's like. I can only imagine how frustrating that is. But that's why, again, it's on the mayor and the city council to ensure that the Ilitches and Stephen Ross do what they said they would do.
So after all of this Sturm und Drang, is it going to be, the sound and fury signifying nothing and we're going to have a vote and it's going to go through? Is that where we're at?
Well, the mayor's had pretty good luck getting what he wants from the council, and he's got some pretty good advocates for this project on the council. the council's like everybody else. They've been down this road with the Illages before. I mean, how many years ago was it Foxtown was going to transform that? And then, when they started this whole District Detroit idea and tore down everything and put parking lots in. I mean, we've been here before with this organization. But, they have to weigh what's the return on investment. And these abatements, according to the mayor in his speech the other night, won't kick in unless they do build. But I can't sit here and say, oh, gosh, I believe they'll build. We've seen this.
Okay, when we come back, major new gun legislation is rolling in Lansing already. Bills are heading to the governor. This as newly elected Michigan GOP chairwoman Christina Karamo's comments on them spark some real backlash. We'll be back.
Dine in style with 40% off all Cannondale at Gorman's. High-quality dining furniture personalized to your style with just the right size, shape, color, and more. Exclusively at Gorman's.
At Comer & Cross, our expert team will transform your basement, garage, or commercial floor in as little as one day, giving it the finish you've always wanted. Our team makes it easy by helping move contents and other heavy items. Our polyaspartic coatings are 4 times stronger than traditional epoxy, non-toxic, environmentally friendly, and come with a 15-year warranty. Coating can be applied in any temperature and driven on in 24 hours. Your new floor will withstand the elements and make cleanup simple and easy. Call Comer & Cross Concrete Coatings today.
You didn't plan to get in an accident, but you can be prepared if it happens. Do take pictures of the damage. Don't speak to the insurance adjusters. Do contact Graywall Law.
I'm Mick Graywall of Graywall Law. I'm some of the largest settlements in the country for serving individuals and families in need of legal assistance. We believe in holding those accountable and obtaining justice for our clients. Graywall Law, helping you protect your rights. For a free confidential case evaluation, go to forgraywalllaw.com.
Save 40% on 10 great brands at Gorman's. That's 40% off everything from 10 of the best brands in furniture. Today's style leaders now at 40% off for a very limited time, exclusively at Gorman's.
I'm Dr. Frank McGeorge, and what goes inside this box right here you might find shocking, even gross. But guess what? It could help detect cancer. I'm going to open it, show you what's inside, and walk you through how to use it. It's the unboxing that could save your life. Unboxing Your Health, Tuesday at 5:45 on Local 4 News and streaming on Local 4 Plus.
Welcome back. I want to start off talking about some major developments in Lansing as far as gun legislation goes. And Nolan, I'd like to start with you. Do you think safe storage, red flag laws, and universal background checks is eyewash, or do you think that it is substantial?
Well, we've supported some of those measures. It all comes down to willingness to enforce, and we haven't shown much of a willingness to enforce laws once we pass them in regards to gun. We could have stopped the shooting at Michigan State University had existing gun laws been enforced. And most of these laws are not going to stop someone from misusing a gun. They'll provide a means of punishing folks afterwards, the people who didn't safe stored their gun or who didn't register a gun or what have you, but they won't stop the shooting itself. And so, a lot of it depends on compliance. I don't think you're going to have a whole lot of compliance with some of these laws, and then enforcement.
So, Dennis, I'm curious what your thoughts are. So we had some Republicans in the State House, including the minority leader, Matt Hall, vote for a safe storage bill the other day. And he took a lot of heat. He's a Vichy Republican or not a real one and all the rest of it. So do these bills create really that much heartburn for GOP members of the legislature?
Well, I think the bigger issue that I see is that the GOP really didn't even participate in the debate. And I mean that as criticism of the GOP. They were too busy defending crazy comments made by the so-called leader of the party, rather than debating whether or not red flag laws are actually good, whether or not there were appropriate due process procedures in there, what how do you say which expert is going to determine whether or not this person should have their Second Amendment taken away? What happens when someone has the Second Amendment right taken away from them, improperly? So this was none of the conversation that was going on. So for those, and when we talk about moving away from the Republican Party, you saw Republicans in competitive areas, in competitive House districts, vote in favor of this because they know exactly what their constituents are looking for. So again, the Republican Party was absent in it, and it was good to see that there were 5 legislators standing up and taking a principled stand.
And yet, Stephen, the polling reliably shows that a majority of the people in this state would like something to be done here that to stop, to try, at least to try.
Yeah.
Do you think this is the bare minimum, or do you think that they stretched it?
I think in terms of potential, it's bare minimum. There are a lot of other things we could do to reach into the world of illegal gun use and illegal gun possession, which is the thing that leads to illegal gun use. I think what's significant here is that, to my memory, this is the first significant gun legislation passed in my lifetime in the state of Michigan, and that's too long to not be thinking intensely about what the opportunity is to prevent gun violence. It's not just gun laws that do that, of course, but you can't do it without laws. And the ease with which criminals can get their hands on guns, the responsibility that doesn't attach to legal gun owners who let their firearms get into illegal possession. There is a nexus between those two things. There always has been. We have not been willing to address those. I think this is an entree to those conversations, and that's what probably is the most important part of it.
Nancy, do you think it ends here? Do you think this is them saying we have fulfilled what we said we would do on gun legislation, or do you think there's more to come?
So here's the big challenge, and please come to freep.com on Monday to read more on this. We have an excellent analysis that we'll be posting. Last year, the Supreme Court ruled in the Bruin case. They developed a new standard for evaluating gun regulations. They said that there must have been an analogous gun regulation in place in 1791 for a gun regulation to stand. We've already seen circuit courts. The Fifth Circuit ruled in February that a federal law barring people under a domestic violence PPO, personal protection order, from having a firearm was unconstitutional. They said it doesn't matter whether the law has a laudatory purpose, but whether it comports with the Constitution. Now, we know that in domestic violence cases, the risk of homicide, of the murder of the subject of domestic violence, goes up by 500% when a firearm is present. But the Fifth Circuit said that doesn't matter. What matters is, was there a law that was analogous to this in 1791 when the Bill of Rights was ratified, or when the 14th Amendment was passed. So this is a really strange thing. And all of these laws, there's a huge pro-gun rights legal infrastructure that is going to challenge all of these. And again, I have a contributing columnist, John Lindstrom, has done an excellent analysis of this, so you will be able to read it 6 a.m. Monday morning at freep.com.
I'm curious what everybody thought when they saw that tweet out from the Michigan GOP with the wedding rings of Jews from the Holocaust, comparing the passage of gun bills, so far just safe storage, to the Holocaust, which immediately sparked so much backlash.
Well,
Nolan.
You say the Michigan GOP tweeted that out again. There is no organized Michigan GOP right now. There's a crazy woman.
That's all we got.
There's a crazy woman who was elected chairman of the party, who speaks for a very narrow band of folks, of Republican activists, and you're going to hear more and more and more of this. And unless the folks, the sort of establishment Republicans, stand up and try to figure out what to do about this and how to get their party at least on some sort of under some sort of sane leadership, you're going to see this every day for the next 2 years, or as long as her term runs. She's certifiable.
Well, speaking of establishment GOP, I was speaking to one that you know well, and he said, honestly, I thought she was the best choice, simply because it is going to tear the party apart and there will have to be a complete rebuild. Do you think
They've been
that's
saying
where...
that for a while now, though.
Well, no,
but that was a sentiment at the convention. I was at the convention a few weeks ago where she was elected, and there was a sentiment that, okay, we're not going to be able to operate anyway. whether it was her or Matt DePerno running the party. It was going to go to hell in a handbasket anyway. So why not hasten this process and see what can come out of it?
Is there any positive out of this?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can look at it that way and say, look, for the next 2 years, there's going to be only one functioning party in this state. The following election cycle will mean open governor race, open secretary of state, open attorney general. So that, yeah, let it fall apart. Here's the question that I'm going to have, though, is you have to control the process, and the process is done through the through the convention. That means you have to get your delegates in there.
Delegate recruitment.
Yeah, and that's how, these people were able to take over the official establishment, was because they went out and they did the hard work, and they recruited the delegates, and they did everything they needed to get inside the building. Now, they're not going to just turn over the keys, so you're going to have to fight your way back in, or create a parallel structure. So, I mean, again, the good news is that this party structure will continue to become irrelevant in the state of Michigan, and there will be an opportunity. Now, whether or not they're able to take advantage of it, we'll see.
Stephen, I'm curious. So my friends who I speak to on the Democratic side are enjoying this immensely. But do you think it does something to the quality of candidates that can be recruited in both parties if you have one that is, Nolan essentially says it, it's a rogue operation?
Well, I mean, I think, this primarily hurts the Republican side of things, but it's not good for anybody for one of the major parties to be in this kind of not just disarray, but just complete collapse and repugnant behavior. I mean, I was shocked to see the tweet, but I was even more shocked to see her come out and say, hey, I'm not the kind of person who apologizes even, and double down on it.
We're in triple down now.
Nothing should shock me. He's not wrong about that.
Consider the source.
But the question is, what is the lever that gets pulled that says, okay, we've had enough of this and we're going to go in a different direction? So Republicans have been talking for some time about doing this differently, moving away from a trend that I think probably started before Trump, but intensified when Trump was elected. So the question always is, what is the thing that has to happen that revives the part of the party that can participate meaningfully in the process?
It could be that the party goes bankrupt and you have some folks who could petition the RNC for some sort of new organization or new group to take it over, and they're not far from bankruptcy.
Speaking of emergencies, the Wayne County executive declared one earlier this week at the jail, at the juvenile detention facility. I would argue that that's been an emergency for quite some time. Are any of you surprised that this has come to this point? And do you think it's a county problem or is it a state problem?
It's a whole problem with the carceral juvenile concept. We don't have clear data on who's being incarcerated at these jails. There's not good data about why these kids are being incarcerated. Not all of them have been, they don't say convicted in juvenile court, not all of them have been found responsible of things. Sometimes they're awaiting charges. Sometimes they're based on a risk assessment that says that they could be dangerous. They don't have appeals processes aren't very good. There's a whole, at every level, systemic issues that need to be sorted out, because what has been reported to happen in that facility is completely unacceptable. The report that a 12-year-old was sexually assaulted, that is just the most egregious of a list of egregious things. And this is not something I think any of us want to own as taxpayers in this state. And again, every level there needs to be significant remodeling of what we're doing here and why.
Okay, when we come back, I'm going to have a quick lightning round question for all that I'm sure they're going to appreciate. We'll be back in a minute.
The top 10 reasons why you'll save more at the Gardner White Anniversary Sale. Reason number 10, get the best designer furniture at the best price. Save up to 50% on designer brands like Bernhardt. Sofas now $19.99 and 5-piece dining now $28.99. And get our unbeatable 0% financing for 50 months. And it's in stock with free same-day delivery. You won't find high-end furniture at these prices anywhere else. Get them before they're gone, exclusively at Gardner White.
To everyone who believes in tradition, come enjoy a few of ours from Wisconsin.
People in Wisconsin love a good fish fry.
Really love. And we love sharing it with guests everywhere.
At Culver's, we still batter our North Atlantic cod by hand to order.
And we cook it to a crispy, golden perfection just for you.
For you.
For you. So it's crispy outside, flaky inside. Let us take care of you.
With some homegrown traditions we were raised on.
From Wisconsin with love.
Welcome to Delicious.
Did you know washing your spouse's clothes may have exposed you to asbestos and qualify you for cash compensation? That's right. If your spouse worked with asbestos in a plant, shipyard, or factory before 1983 and you washed their clothes, you may both have been exposed and qualify for cash compensation. This is not a lawsuit against the company you worked for. Schedule your health test today. Call 833-579-5299. 833-579-5299.
Think as if it were you on the other side.
If I see something good around the country, we're adopting it.
It's hard.
We are really, really close to a tipping point.
That is astronomically insane.
Solutionaries, the creative thinkers and doers working to make the world a better place. Subscribe at youtube.com/solutionaries.
So our lightning round question, it certainly appears that Alyssa Slotkin will be the Democratic nominee for Senate in this state, at least right now. Who's the GOP nominee, Nolan?
I like Mike Rogers.
I'm going to just say I think there might be more of a race on the Democratic side than we're thinking right now.
What you know, Keffer?
I think it's got to be a self-funder like Kevin Rinke.
I like Peter Meyer in the general, but can he get the nomination would be the question.
Okay, everybody, thank you for joining me for Flashpoint this morning. Devin will be back next week. Meet the Press is next. Have a great Sunday.